I stood in the elegant marble foyer of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, adjusting the emerald silk dress that had cost me 3 months of savings. Tonight was supposed to be the pinnacle of my career, the launch of my debut novel, Whispers in the Dark, that had taken me 5 years to write. Publishers had fought over it, critics were already calling it a masterpiece of modern literature, and my agent predicted it would hit the bestseller list within weeks. But as I watched the glittering crowd of literary elite mingling in the ballroom beyond, sipping champagne and discussing my work, I felt an odd emptiness in my chest. Something was missing from this perfect evening, and I knew exactly what it was. My twin sister Elena wasn't here. Elena Blackwood, the golden child, the family favorite, the sister who had always outshone me in every possible way. Growing up, while I buried myself in books and scribbled stories in notebooks, Elena was the social butterfly who effortlessly commanded every room she entered. She was head cheerleader, prom queen, valedictorian, and Harvard graduate with a law degree that opened every door in the city. But tonight was supposed to be my night. For once in our 32 years of life, I was the one being celebrated while Elena remained conspicuously absent. "Congratulations, Vivian," a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to see my editor, Robert Sinclair, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. "Your speech was absolutely brilliant. The crowd is enchanted." I accepted the glass with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Robert. Though I have to admit, I keep expecting someone to wake me up and tell me this is all a dream." Robert chuckled, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "Trust me, this is very real. Whispers in the Dark is going to change your life, Vivian. Publishers are already asking when you'll have your next manuscript ready." As he spoke, I caught sight of a familiar figure across the room. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the platinum blonde hair and designer cocktail dress that could only belong to one person. Elena had arrived. She glided through the crowd with her characteristic grace, accepting congratulations and air kisses from people who seemed to know her personally. But how could they know her? This was my event, my literary circle, my moment of triumph. "Excuse me for a moment," I murmured to Robert, setting down my champagne glass with trembling fingers. I made my way across the ballroom, weaving between clusters of chattering guests until I reached the spot where Elena stood surrounded by admirers. She looked radiant as always, her perfect makeup highlighting her sharp cheekbones and those piercing blue eyes we'd inherited from our mother. "Elena," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't expect to see you here." She turned toward me with that dazzling smile that had charmed teachers, boyfriends, and business associates throughout our lives. "Vivian, darling sister, I wouldn't miss your big night for anything in the world." The words should have warmed my heart, but something in her tone felt off. There was an undercurrent I couldn't quite identify, a subtle edge that made my skin prickle with unease. "How did you even know about the launch party?" I asked. "I don't remember mentioning it during our last phone call." Elena's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. "Oh, you know how word travels in literary circles. Besides, your agent David mentioned it when we had lunch last week." My blood ran cold. David Morrison was my agent, the man who had discovered my manuscript and believed in my talent when no one else would. Why would he be having lunch with Elena? "You had lunch with David?" I asked slowly. "Didn't he tell you?" Elena's eyes sparkled with something that looked almost like amusement. "We've been working together on a little project. Actually, speaking of which." She reached into her designer clutch and pulled out what looked like a legal document. "I have some news that I think will surprise you. If you're enjoying the story of sisterly betrayal and want to see how deep this deception goes, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Trust me, what happens next will shock you to your core." I stared at the papers Elena held, my heart beginning to race. "What kind of news?" "Well," Elena said, her voice taking on that sweet tone she'd used as a child when she was about to get away with something terrible, "it turns out that Whispers in the Dark isn't actually your original work." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" Elena's smile widened as she unfolded the document. "According to this copyright filing, the story concept, characters, and plot outline for Whispers in the Dark were actually developed by me 3 years ago. I have all the documentation to prove it." I felt the room spinning around me. "That's impossible. I wrote every word of that novel myself. I have drafts dating back 5 years. Oh, I'm sure you wrote the final version, Elena said dismissively. But the core intellectual property belongs to me. I shared the concept with you during one of our sisterly heart-to-hearts, remember? You must have unconsciously absorbed my ideas and convinced yourself they were your own. The conversation around us had gone quiet. I realized that several guests were now listening intently to our exchange, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and concern. This is insane, Elena, I whispered, trying to keep my voice low. Why would you do this to me? Elena's expression shifted, and for just a moment, I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes. Because, dear sister, I'm tired of watching you get credit for things that should be mine. Before I could respond, David Morrison himself appeared at Elena's side. My agent, the man I'd trusted with my career, my dreams, my future, placed a protective hand on Elena's shoulder. Vivian, he said, his voice apologetic but firm, I think we need to talk privately. There are some legal complications we need to discuss regarding your publication contract. I stared at him in disbelief. Legal complications? David, you know I wrote that book. You've seen my process, my research, my drafts. I've reviewed Elena's documentation, David replied, avoiding my eyes. The evidence is quite compelling. The original story outline, character sketches, and thematic concepts all appear to be her work. This is a nightmare, I said, my voice breaking. Elena, please. Tell them the truth. You know I wrote this book. Elena tilted her head, studying me with mock sympathy. Oh, Vivian. You've always had such a vivid imagination. Perhaps you've convinced yourself that you created something that was actually collaborative. The humiliation was unbearable. Here I was, at what should have been the greatest moment of my career, being accused of plagiarism by my own sister in front of the entire literary establishment. I need some air, I managed to say, turning away from Elena's triumphant smile and David's uncomfortable expression. I pushed through the crowd, ignoring the whispers and stares that followed in my wake. In the hotel lobby, I collapsed into a leather armchair, my mind reeling with the implications of what had just happened. How had Elena orchestrated this? How long had she been planning to destroy me? My phone buzzed with a text message. Elena's name appeared on the screen. Meet me in the hotel bar in 10 minutes. We need to finish this conversation privately. Against my better judgment, I found myself walking toward the dimly lit hotel bar. Elena was already there, seated at a corner table with 2 martinis waiting. She looked completely relaxed, as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. Sit down, Vivian, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Let's talk like adults. I remained standing, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Talk about what? How you trying to steal my work? How you've been plotting behind my back? Elena sipped her martini calmly. I'm not stealing anything. I'm simply claiming what was always mine. That's a lie and you know it. Is it? Elena's voice became deadly quiet. Tell me, Vivian, do you remember our conversation 3 years ago when you came to my apartment crying about your writer's block? Do you remember how desperate you were for ideas? I felt a chill run down my spine. I did remember that night. I'd been struggling with my novel for months, unable to find the right direction for the story. Elena had listened patiently as I poured out my frustrations. You comforted me that night, I said slowly. You helped me work through some plot problems. I did more than that, Elena replied. I gave you the entire framework for your story. The mysterious protagonist with a hidden past, the small town with dark secrets, the revelation that the heroine's own family was behind everything she'd been running from. Ring any bells? My mouth went dry. Those were indeed central elements of my novel, but I developed them organically through months of writing and revision. Elena, we brainstormed together. That's what sisters do. That doesn't mean you own my work. Actually, Elena said, reaching into her purse again, it does. Especially when I have recordings of our conversations. She placed a small digital recorder on the table between us. 3 years of discussions about your book, Vivian. 3 years of me feeding you ideas, helping you develop characters, and solving plot holes. All documented. I stared at the recorder in horror. You've been recording our private conversations for 3 years? I've been protecting my intellectual property, Elena corrected. You see, I knew someday you might try to take credit for work that was fundamentally collaborative. I needed evidence. This is sick, Elena. Even if you helped me brainstorm, I'm the one who actually wrote the book. I'm the one who spent 2 years crafting every sentence, developing every character arc, creating every piece of dialogue. Elena shrugged. Execution is just the easy part. The real creativity lies in conception. Anyone can type words on a page, but it takes genuine talent to create the underlying vision. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to deserve this? For the first time that evening, Elena's composed facade cracked slightly. You want to know why? Because I'm tired of being the perfect daughter who never gets recognition for the things that actually matter. What are you talking about? You've had everything handed to you your entire life. Have I? Elena's voice rose slightly. Yes, I was popular in school. Yes, I got good grades. Yes, I went to Harvard and became a successful lawyer. But none of that was what I actually wanted. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with an intensity I'd never seen before. Do you know what I wanted, Vivian? I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to create stories that moved people, that changed lives, that mattered. But everyone always told me I was too practical for that, too grounded, too focused on real-world success. I stared at her in shock. You never told me you wanted to write. Because you were already the family writer, Elena snapped. You were the dreamy, creative one who got to pursue her passions while everyone cheered her on. I was the responsible one who was supposed to focus on a stable career and financial security. But you chose law school. No one forced you. I chose it because it was expected, Elena said bitterly. Because that's what successful, practical Elena Blackwood would do. But every single day for the past 10 years, I've sat in boardrooms and courtrooms wishing I was writing instead. The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. My perfect sister, the one who seemed to have everything figured out, had been harboring the same dreams I'd been pursuing. Elena, it's not too late. You could still write. You could. No, she cut me off. I'm 32 years old, Vivian. I have a career, a reputation, a life built around being practical, Elena. But you get to live the life I always wanted. You get to be celebrated for your creativity while I'm stuck in corporate law forever. So you decided to destroy my career instead? Elena's smile returned, cold and calculating. I decided to take what was rightfully mine. Your book is going to be pulled from publication while the legal issues are sorted out. Your reputation in the literary world is finished. And I'm going to publish my own novel using the story concepts that were originally mine. I felt like I was drowning. You have a book written? I've been working on it for the past year, Elena said proudly. A much better version of the story we developed together. More sophisticated, more psychologically complex. Real literary fiction, not the commercial drivel you produced. The cruelty of her words was breathtaking. Elena, please. This will destroy me. Writing is all I have. And being the perfect successful daughter is all I've had, Elena replied. It's time for things to change. I stood up from the table, my legs shaking. I won't let you do this. I'll fight you in court. I'll prove that book is mine. Elena's laugh was like ice. With what resources? I'm a Harvard-trained lawyer with connections throughout the legal system. You're a struggling writer whose own agent has already sided with me. How exactly do you plan to fight? She was right, and we both knew it. I had no money for a legal battle, no powerful allies, no proof beyond my own word that the story was originally mine. Besides, Elena continued, even if you somehow won in court, the damage to your reputation would be irreversible. Publishers don't like controversy, Vivian. They certainly don't like authors who get embroiled in plagiarism scandals. I walked away from that table feeling like my entire world had collapsed. The sister I'd loved and looked up to my entire life had systematically planned my destruction, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. But Elena had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect my work. Over the next week, as news of the plagiarism accusations spread through literary circles, I did what I do best. I researched. I dug deep into Elena's life, looking for any evidence that would prove her claims were fabricated. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Elena's elaborate plan went back much further than 3 years. She'd been sabotaging my writing career from the very beginning, using her connections to ensure that publishers and agents wouldn't take me seriously. The reason my first manuscript had been rejected by dozens of publishers wasn't because it wasn't good enough. It was because Elena had used her Harvard network to spread rumors about my instability and unprofessionalism. She'd intercepted emails from potential agents, manipulated submission processes, and even paid people to give me negative feedback that would discourage me from continuing to write. The only reason Whispers in the Dark had succeeded was because David Morrison had discovered it through a submission portal that Elena didn't know about. But even then, she'd been monitoring my progress, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Armed with this information, I went to see Robert Sinclair, my editor. He listened to my story with growing amazement and anger. "Vivian," he said when I finished, "if what you're telling me is true, this goes far beyond plagiarism. This is systematic harassment and fraud. Can you help me prove it?" Robert nodded grimly. "I have contacts in the publishing world who can verify some of these claims. More importantly, I have access to submission databases that will show the timing of when your work was actually created." Working together, we built a comprehensive case that exposed Elena's years-long campaign against my career. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. David Morrison, racked with guilt over his betrayal, came forward with recordings of his own conversations with Elena. In them, she clearly admitted to fabricating the plagiarism claims and outlined her plan to steal my work. When confronted with this evidence, Elena's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. But rather than admit defeat, she doubled down on her cruelty. "You think you've won," she said when we met for the final time in her lawyer's office. "Even if you prove I lied, you'll never get back what you've lost. Your reputation is ruined, Vivian. Your credibility is destroyed. No one will ever fully trust your work again." I looked at my sister, this woman who had shared my childhood, my secrets, my dreams, and felt nothing but pity. "You're wrong, Elena," I said quietly. "The truth has a way of coming out. And when it does, people remember who stood by it and who tried to destroy it." I was right. When the full story broke in Publishers Weekly, the literary community rallied around me with overwhelming support. Whispers in the Dark not only returned to publication, but became a bestseller partly because of the controversy. Readers were fascinated by the real-life drama behind the fiction. Elena's law career collapsed under the weight of the scandal. It turned out that fabricating intellectual property claims and systematically harassing a family member for years doesn't look good on a lawyer's professional record. But the most satisfying vindication came 6 months later when my second novel, The Perfect Sister, was published. It was the story of sibling rivalry, family betrayal, and the lengths people will go to steal others' dreams. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Elena sent me one final message after the success of my second book. It was a simple text. "I hope you're happy." I was. Not because I destroyed her career, that brought me no joy, but because I'd learned something invaluable about the difference between success that's earned and success that's stolen. Elena had spent her entire life believing that achievement meant taking from others, that there wasn't enough success to go around, that she could only rise by pushing me down. I learned that real success comes from creating something genuinely your own, from persevering through difficulties, and from surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your victories rather than trying to steal them. Today, I'm working on my third novel while Elena is apparently doing freelance legal work and, according to mutual friends, finally writing the book she always claimed she wanted to create. I hope she finds success with it. Real success, the kind that comes from honest work and genuine talent rather than manipulation and betrayal. Because the truth is, there was always room for both of us to be writers. Elena's mistake was believing that my success somehow diminished her possibilities, when in reality, my achievements could have inspired and encouraged her own creative journey. The saddest part of this entire story isn't that Elena tried to steal my work. It's that she robbed herself of the opportunity to discover what she was truly capable of creating on her own. Sometimes the people closest to us become our greatest obstacles, not because they hate us, but because they can't bear the thought that we might achieve the dreams they abandoned for themselves. The key to surviving such betrayal isn't revenge, it's refusing to let someone else's limitations become your own. Elena taught me that family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind, but it also showed me that my strength and talent were mine alone, impossible to steal, no matter how elaborate the plot against me. In the end, the best response to someone trying to steal your dreams is to dream bigger, work harder, and create something so undeniably yours that no one could ever question its authenticity. That's exactly what I did, and it's why I'm here today, telling this story as a successful author rather than as Elena's victim. If this story of sisterly betrayal and ultimate justice resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that their dreams are worth fighting for. Remember, no one can steal your authentic voice. They can only try to silence it. The choice of whether to let them succeed is always yours.